Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're going to do a quick midweek update from what we've seen happen this week in cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learn anything, please leave a thumbs up on the video as it really helps out my channel, and I do appreciate it. And of course, if you think this is going to be a big long-term opportunity and you want to take advantage, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes, but then I would recommend going back and watching at least episode 3 and 4 of Reality Check Cannabis in 2020, and then you can watch episodes of This Week in Cannabis from October leading to now, as I've covered the entire sort of evolution of this potential legalization, and we're still underway. So I'm excited to announce that Canopy has reported their third quarter results for 2021, and their revenue set records, which was enough to at least drive the price up and keep people interested from my understanding. But if we dive a bit deeper, we can see that although they set a record of net revenue, which is only up 23% from last year, so year over year, that's not a lot. Gross margin percent, again, down as well, but they lost $829 million. They were unprofitable, negative EBITDA, and they lost $135 million in free cash flow. So this sort of reemphasizes just what I've been saying, is that Canopy, unfortunately, just has blown a lot of the money that they were lent by Constellation Brands. But apparently, David Klein was saying that the Martha Stewart brands are doing really well as of September. So these are new developments. We're going to wait and see into the new year, but if we just take a look quickly at their sales, their business to business, so wholesale to other businesses in Canada, stayed flat. Their business to consumer did increase 33% from last year. But again, year over year, 33%, that's sort of normal growth for other industries. Whereas cannabis, at least with the FRIA being growing by 100% year over year, that's just showing a lot of promise in the Canadian market for them, meaning their brands are successful. Now, if we go through the rest, their medical revenue, actually, it only went up by 4% in Canada, and then international, it did go up, which is great, because with the Rona situation, you'd actually expect a bit less of this just because of distribution issues and whatnot, but 15% is still good. So overall, they've gotten that up by 10%. Their net cannabis revenue year over year, though, is 9%. Seems like they're getting a lot of their revenue from other sources, and this is likely the CBD Martha Stewart deals and like sort of their brand deals that they use celebrities for, but nonetheless, total net revenue of 152, up 23% from a year ago. Now, not to get into all the details, but that is Canopy, and of course, I think the main thing that they have going for them, and that investors see in them still, because they did go up 11% yesterday, even based on those terrible fundamental numbers, is that they do plan to own acreage and a large piece of acreage and a large piece of terrace, and once U.S. legalization happens. And, it just goes to show that the sentiment is changing, and at least big investors that can get into these companies, because, again, they trade on the NASDAQ, right? Unlike U.S. multi-state operators, they can't uplist yet. These Canadian companies are getting the spotlight for the brief time, because they trade on these U.S. exchanges, and their potential global medical reach is, I think that's what people are paying attention to. But Tilray absolutely stole the show yesterday. They received their first and only market authorization to offer medical cannabis products in Portugal. Now, this is a sequence. This was February 1st. So they announced this, giving them their 16th country where patients can access Tilray Tilray medicinal cannabis products. But then on the 4th, they announced that they made their first shipment to Spain, which expanded that into their 17th country, which is awesome. It just means that they're slowly getting into these, or they're slowly building up these revenue streams, and they're actually starting. If Tilray makes their first shipment, that means they're getting paid to send cannabis, and then we actually had this deal yesterday, which was the big spark with Canopy and all that news, is that they made an agreement with Grow Pharma to distribute Tilray's GMP-certified medical cannabis products across the UK. So within a week, I imagine Tilray's been working on this for years, and within a week they can announce Portugal, Spain, and UK, all countries that Canopy doesn't have access to, and countries that will benefit APHA and Tilray once they merge, right? So that's just great to see. If you want to read more detail, you can go through there, but this is what caused Tilray to go up 40% yesterday, and it's up pre-market 22% over $50 a share, which is insane. And just a reminder that APHA and Tilray are pretty much trading neck and neck because of the merger that they have planned. So this is a massive opportunity. And then APHA put this out on Monday just to say that they strengthened their leadership and position, and they remain on track to be the first licensed producer to cultivate medical cannabis in Germany. And even they got a lot of recognition yesterday, going up 25%, and in pre-market they're again up 24%. Could not have imagined this. I really did not think that Canadian LPs would get this much love this quickly, but hey, we're in uncharted territories, folks. But I want to point out that it's still a benefit to purchase APHA shares as opposed to Tilray shares, because if the merger doesn't go through for whatever reason, APHA is the better company, fundamentally with the brands and all that. And Tilray is ultimately, like, when you combine the two, that makes a behemoth that can compete with Canopy. So as long as you, or if you are looking to get in, you want to purchase APHA shares, because once the deal does go through, they'll become Tilray. And if the deal doesn't go through and it falls for whatever reason, then you at least keep APHA, which does have more leverage long-term. Globally, I think, too, just because Germany is the largest market fundamentally, and they're number one in Canada. But so just to point out, Canopy Growth is now, and this is in US dollars, not Canadian, but $18 billion market cap. And we just saw that they just lost $835 million in the last quarter. How does that make sense? I don't know. But Canopy, you know, Bruce Linton did a great job kind of marketing their idea out there, and it's done wonders. But we can see that APHA and Tilray are now literally combining to be that entity to keep up with Canopy. So that is sort of the situation with those three companies right now. And Acreage, which is the company that Canopy actually plans to purchase once US legalization happens, they have announced that they are releasing their earnings March 10th. So we only have two MSOs as of right now that have announced their earnings date. So we've got Acreage on March 10th, and then we've got Green Thumb Industries, which will announce those on March 17th. And interestingly enough, Green Thumb's not done raising money. They announced initial public offering in the US to raise another $100 million. And I imagine they're thinking like Boris Jordan from Cureleaf, as though that we want to hit the ground running, so we want this cash now. And I think the easiest way to just think of this, folks, is shortly following becoming effective, Green Thumb received and accepted an offer from a single institutional investor. Think about that. A single institutional investor, someone with a ton of money, was like, I want 3.1 million shares at $32.03 per share, and they see that as a good deal. So that's, again, why I'm emphasizing before the Safe Banking Act. You know, if some massive institutional investor is willing to pay that, then any retail investors, us getting in now, is still a great discount and a great time. Cresco Labs signs an exclusive distribution agreement with award-winning California cannabis producer Emerald Family Farms. So I think this is a great thing for Cresco, just as a shareholder myself. The agreement will bring EFF's award-winning lineup of jarred flower, pre-rolls, and concentrates into Cresco's California distribution platform, Continuum, which is one of the largest full-service distribution businesses in the state. Now, this is new news to me, and I do want to look into this more deeply. I just know that Cresco is a fast-growing company with their wholesale model, but what this tells me is that they're going to get a more secured foot in California, which is, again, one of, well, the largest markets in the US, but it's just going to keep growing, and getting a solid foothold in there early is big. So good on Cresco for that. These MSOs keep executing. And then if we actually look at this study, more recently put out, but cannabidiol antidepressant-like effect in the lipopolysaccharide model in mice, modulation of inflammatory pathways. Ignore that, but this is just what I want to touch on, because this was big news to me, and this makes me realize that why Canopy, APHA, and Tilray are getting so much action is that people see the potential in this. Our results demonstrate that CBD produced antidepressant-like effects in the LPS neuroinflammatory model, associated to a reduction in the kynurenine pathway activation. But so as CBD stands out as a promising antidepressant drug, more research is needed to completely understand the mechanisms of action in depression linked to inflammation. So the more we find out about the body, a lot of what we find out is caused really just by inflammation, oftentimes added by stress that we create on ourselves, bad habits, you know, added pressure that we put on ourselves. But what this just tells me is that this is going to eat into big pharma a lot. And if you have the opportunity, hey, do you want antidepressants that are addictive or non-addictive? Which one would you like? Everyone's going to go with the non-addictive one so that they don't risk overdosing, right? So that is massive. And then this is where we get into actually where can we expect legislation changes? What are we at right now? U.S. cannabis banking likely to come ahead of Senate legalization bill. So I will read through this a bit, so bear with me, but this is according to Marijuana Policy Project Director of Government Relations Chris Lindsay, who's more bullish on federal legalization this year than in his nearly 2 decades of advocacy. So just read between the lines here. With Democrats clinching the Senate majority last month, the party now has control of the Congress and the White House. And there's been a fantastic amount of unity the last few weeks among lawmakers, lobbyists, advocates in Washington to move forward on cannabis legalization. So it goes to show that it's not just politicians. You have all of these legislators, you've got lawmakers, then you got lobbyists, you got advocates, all these different powers in play, which makes these decisions so complex. On Monday, Democratic Senators Cory Booker, Ron Wyden, and Chuck Schumer said they'll push to pass sweeping legislation. So that's what we know. Now, this is the main thing of saying, like, oh, well, what are the risks ahead of time? Now, issues open for debate include record expungement, social justice, descheduling, state-level powers, taxes, and legalizing medical cannabis. All of these that, to me, scream yes! And to you, probably scream yes, too. The devil's in the details, and while it's exciting to hear about these prospects, we don't know what the measures are going to include or exclude. And yeah, there might be back and forth chatter about it. This I found interesting, though. Major bills typically require the support of filibuster-proof, meaning 60 votes out of 100 to pass in the Senate, Lindsay explains. Okay, that's good to know. Meanwhile, Democrats only control 50 seats, but they have a tiebreaker held by Kamala Harris. So it's possible that they need to get 60 votes to beat this filibuster thing. But also, if they don't manage that, they can get the tiebreaker from Kamala Harris. So, I mean, there is obviously risk that this can just take longer, but I don't think there's any risk of it not eventually passing because, like, everyone wants this, right? So that's where I think we just need to be optimistic and know that for the best thing for humanity, it's going to happen. And then I just hate how he adds this. If Republicans gain control of either the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate next year, which would be another vote at the end of 2022, they could potentially start winding back. Okay, but, like, why, like, if the Dems say that they're going to do it in 2021, adding this is just fluff to scare people and kind of contradict the positive notion of the article. That's what I found out of it. So I just wanted to point that out because that's something interesting. But again, last December, Lindsay predicts Democrats will likely borrow certain provisions from the states in the MORE Act. So they'll take from the MORE Act, which decriminalizes and deschedules cannabis from the controlled substances, and then they'll take the States Act, which allows states to make their own laws, and they'll combine that and likely pass that later on in 2021. I want that to pass now, again, for humanity, for expunging records and all that, but that's going to take more time because they have to debate it back and forth and make sure both parties like it. But get out of here. Now, this is the best part, though, is where currently advocates are lobbying to have elements of the Safe Banking Act included in a major COVID relief package that's currently being debated in Congress now. So, although legalization would come later, the Safe Banking Act, which actually allows these companies to uplist on exchanges, we can expect it, again, 60 to 90 days, 2 to 3 months. We don't know, but that's what we're waiting on. That is the big next catalyst for US MSOs, most definitely. And so the amendments would create stopgap protections for financial institutions to legally service state licensed operators without federal interference until cannabis is descheduled. Plus, it would open up credit cards and electronic transactions for weed companies who currently operate on a cash-only basis, which obviously, yes, makes them more susceptible to theft. So this is the best part. If cannabis banking isn't included in the COVID relief bill, Lindsay sees the reforms coming as a standalone piece of legislation or potentially part of some bigger package. And apparently, Republican Ed Perlmutter, who I mentioned in my last video, he's confident the Safe Banking Act will pass this year. So if it doesn't happen in the next few months, he's confident this year. So again, it's important to make sure you have enough cash on hand to pay your rent, to eat your food, and support your family and all that if you need be, but also to just know that we do have a time frame to play with. And because banking lobbyists are behind the initiative that's gained support from Republicans, Lindsay sees it passing in the next few months. So what's nice to know and what makes me more confident is that there is a lot of money behind cannabis going forward, right? We've never had this lobbying power before, and I just got to scroll down to this. As for federal legalization, bill emerging out of the Senate, Lindsay says it's a matter of when, not if. So it's not like, oh, is it going to happen? It is going to happen. We just need to be patient and wait for it, and just how nonchalant. You watch when the bill comes out, people are going to freak out because it'll suddenly start to get real. It's pretty exciting, hence why you just want to get in before that action happens. Now, good news out of Wisconsin. Governor Tony Evers will propose legalizing recreational and medical marijuana as part of the, again, next state budget. Why? Well, because legalizing and taxing cannabis in Wisconsin, just like we do with alcohol, ensures a controlled market and safe products are available for everyone. Yes, again, great progress for Wisconsin there, but this was what was shocking for me. South Dakota judge appointed by Trump. So not a judge who was voted in, but appointed by the moron that thankfully just left power. Ali Christie Nome rejects cannabis legalization. So someone put into power rejects what the people of South Dakota voted for? This is insane. Now, if I was in South Dakota, I would move. I'm so furious. But, so think of it. Circuit Judge Christina Klinger, who was appointed by Nome in 2019, agreed with the governor and invalidated the amendment late Monday afternoon. And basically, Republican Governor Kristi Noem, close ally of Trump, opposed the legalization effort and moved to reject the amendment after it was passed, arguing it should be overturned on technical grounds. And I get this. This is nuts. You cannot allow this to happen or you lose all of your rights completely. Like, this is messed up. But we disagree with the ruling, and this is it. So, Noem insisted that South Dakota voters made the wrong choice after they voted to legalize cannabis in November? No, that's not how democracy works. The voters have the choice. It's their power. Like, you don't argue that. On Monday, she celebrated the ruling of the overturn of the choice and expressed confidence that the Supreme Court, which includes 2 justices she appointed, see, look how corrupt that is, which includes 2 justices she appointed. You have to get out of South Dakota if you live there, because it's just corrupt. Like, you could live in Zimbabwe. You could live in Somalia. Like, you want to get out when this corruption is happening. But today's decision protects and safeguards our Constitution. Where was that? But I did want to point out, so A separate measure legalizing medical cannabis, which passed with nearly 7% of the vote, was not affected. So this was just against the full-scale adult use legalization, which would be great for South Dakota's budget, things like that. But what you can just see in the details is that someone who appointed this person is trying to do this because they know the Supreme Court judges who they appointed themselves will likely work in their favor. It's insane. This is just corruption at the finest level. We're witnessing it right before our eyes. So lastly, to end off on a lighter note, top cannabis businesses, associations, and advocacy organizations joined forces to launch U.S. Cannabis Council. So it appears we have now there's going to be a nonprofit organization that strategically aligns and unifies the members' collective voices to advance cannabis reform. This is great, and it includes most of the U.S. multi-state operators, Canopy involved because of their connection, but we're going to actually have an association that has enough power to lobby against big pharma lobbying and big alcohol lobbying and all these other industry lobbyists that have held cannabis illegal for so long. So that's amazing. And last thing to touch on, cannabis concentrate sales up 40% as more consumers turn to the product category, which just shows that more consumers are experimenting with different products as opposed to dried flower. Ultimately, though, what just tells me is it diversifies the industry. It goes to show that a lot of these new products that I'm a joint guy, but batter, butter, crumble, all this stuff people can buy, people can try them out. They have different effects, different feels, but it's just shows that people are diversifying in their purchasing, making purchases more than just the dried flower in the vape market, which ultimately I think long-term for the health is great to see. And so lastly, I end off with this North American Cannabis Report 2nd edition by Prohibition Partners, folks. If you want it, you can click free download, and I think you just have to put in your name, your email, and you get a copy sent to your email, and you can check this out. It's a long report. It's big. I'll probably be covering a lot of this as I end up going through these videos, so you don't necessarily need it, but it's there for you. Any resource, again, is helpful too, because the more that you know about what you're invested in, the more confident it makes you as an investor. It makes it easier for you to buy and hold. And that is it for this midweek update, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I'll catch you on Sunday for the full recap of This Week in Cannabis. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.